Hello chess friends and welcome to your side of chess channel and welcome to a beautiful game from the recent TCEC season 27 Premier Division that you could follow on the official and beautiful TCEC website. We have here the winner of this Premier Division Stockfish 17 against the top engine Berserk in a crazy Chigorin Defense of the Ruy Lopez theory, and Stockfish won the Premier Division with a clear result. Stockfish gained after 54 rounds 5 points more than the second place Lila C0, and in the grand final, in the super final, we'll see again the epic battle between Stockfish and Lila C0. And I think Lila doesn't have any chances against Stockfish in the super final because Lila C0 and Stockfish played so far four matches, so 8 games in this whole event, and Stockfish gained 3 wins and 5 draws. So Lila C0 didn't win any games against Stockfish. So I think in the super final we can expect again Stockfish to be the winner of a new TCEC competition. And first of all, I wanted to also talk about another video that I published today, played by Gukesh, where Gukesh played really an amazing queen sacrifice, and you couldn't write comments in this video. Probably it's because of the title I wrote there. That's Gukesh is 13 years old, and there is this policy on YouTube. They when there's maybe a kid involved, they don't want to have the comment section below. I'm sorry about that, but it's okay. It's perfectly fine. I think it's a natural algorithm by YouTube. So of course in this video probably you get again to comment on this video, and please do so, and please also suggest some games from this Premier Division if you want to see them in this in my YouTube chess channel, because I think many great games have been played. So of course I would be thrilled to cover many games, especially by the winner Stockfish 17. So let's dive now into this game. Ruy Lopez theory, Chigorin Defense with the white pieces. The fish open with the move e4. We have e5, we have knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5. The Ruy Lopez, the Spanish game, is on the board. Murphy Defense, bishop to a4, we have knight to f6, and now castling here by Stockfish. Bishop to e7 by Berserk, simply going into the close Ruy Lopez, and now Stockfish finally protects the pawn on e4. b5, bishop to b3, d6, and now c3. The standard idea here by white, trying of course to break and enter in the center of the board with the move d4. We have castling h3, prophylactic idea, not allowing to get pinned here by the bishop against the knight. So it's of course a preparation to play aggressively in the center of the board with the move d4. Knight to a5, Berserk attacks the bishop on b3. Stockfish of course wants to keep now the bishop here on the board, and after c5 now comes this idea that we have talked about, d4, queen to c7. We have d5. Stockfish gets now a space advantage in the center of the board, but this d5 move makes also a couple of positional problems in white's position. First of all, when the position is now locked in the center of the board, this bishop is not so well placed, so Stockfish will have now a tough time to include now this bishop into the game. All of the other pieces I think could be included into the game. The knight will eventually come into the game through this maneuver, knight to d2, knight to f1, knight to g3. This bishop has already a great activity, so the only piece that needs improvement now in white's camp is of course the light square bishop. Bishop to d7 by Berserk. Stockfish continues with b3, and now rook to e8, bishop to e3, and now Berserk is trying a maneuver with the knight. Berserk is trying to get the knight on f4 here. That's why Berserk has to prepare first of all with the move g6. Knight to h5 immediately is a mistake because of this tactic, knight takes e5, d takes e5, and then of course white is winning a pawn and will eventually of course win the game. So that's why after bishop to e3, g6 prepares now this knight to h5, hop, knight from b to d2. Now comes this idea, and now king to h2, king to h2. So the idea about king to h2 is, in some lines, when the knight is finally coming on f4, then you want to play knight to g1 and then g3. Then the king and the knight will protect the h3 pawn. So Stockfish is first of all playing a calm defensive setup, is not rushing with the attack. When the time is right, Stockfish will of course find some attacking ideas for sure. And what should black do now in this particular position? One of the standard ideas that you want to do in these types of blocked pawn structures is to maybe break and enter here on the flanks, but f5 again would be simply too rushed. Then after e takes f5, g takes f5, then again this idea is working, then the knight is not protected anymore. Again, whites win the piece. And if you try bishop to f5, then bishop to f5 again with the same pattern, knight to e5, or g4 is even in some is a possibility here, but this f5 concept is not a good move here for black. So that's why for king to h2, knight to b7. Here we have by Berserk. And now Stockfish plays in move 17, a theoretical novelty, but this shouldn't be really a huge surprise. There are some lines in the Ruy Lopez that are lasting for 35 moves, so they're still considered maybe the main theory of the Ruy Lopez opening. So rook to b1 now. Finally, we have a new move. Let's see, in one game that has been played in 2011 between Gennady Alexandrov Budkin and Joaquin Loveras Rebel, knight to g1 has been played, preventing, of course, this whole knight to f4 idea, and then go with the move g3. But okay, rook to b1. Stockfish waits now this knight to f4 move to happen. We have now rook to f8 here by Berserk, and now rook to g1. Slowly but surely, Stockfish is preparing an attack here on the king side. Stockfish says, I have solved many problems on the queen side. Now it's time to push it here, maybe to do something on this side of the board. Knight to f4 finally by Berserk. We have now rook to c4, breaking an anchor here on the queen side, and now we have knight to a5, rook to h1, b takes c4, and now b takes c4. I like here Stockfish choice to keep the pieces on the board. Many of us would maybe even play knight to c4, but then it leads, of course, into further trades of pieces. So I like the fact that Stockfish is still complicating things. B takes c4, perfectly fine. This knight is out of game. It's, of course, on the edge of the board, and you don't want to trade off your good knight that could be maybe included into the attack on the king side for a bad knight of blacks, which is very useless on this side of the board. So that's why many I would say beginners would try knight to c4 and go for trades of pieces. So when you don't have to complicate things, try to do, of course, more aggressive ideas. Now Stockfish keeps still the pieces on the board. We have now rook from f to b8, an attack against the rook to e1. We have bishop to f6. We have here knight to g1 finally, with the idea to play the move g3, bishop to g7, rook takes b8, and now rook takes b8. Queen to c1 prevents, of course, here the idea by the rook maybe to come on this active square on b2. Knight to h5. Sorry, I have some issues with my mouse. It's simply moving a little bit too fast. After queen to c1, what Berserk did, played now knight to h5. Berserk knows now that this g3 move is going to happen anyway, so that's why it retreats finally, and Stockfish is slowly but surely pushing here black pieces away from the attack. We have bishop to d1. Now Stockfish says your knight is not going to come into the game at all. Even if you play, of course, knight to f4, then the g3 move is coming. Oh, of course, first of all, maybe we can play queen to a3, preventing knight to d3, the fork against the queen and the rook, but then g3 afterwards, and the position, I think, is then much better here for white. So that's why for bishop to d1, Berserk finally retreats, and Stockfish solve now any attacking chance by black here on the king side. Stockfish is controlling, of course, still the b2 square. This knight is, as we mentioned, simply out of game, and here Stockfish announces an attack with a beautiful knight to e2. Saying also with this move that never knight to f4 is going to happen, because now finally Stockfish has a perfect control of this weak square in its position. We have bishop to c8, rook to h1, and with this move, Stockfish is really now finally announcing an attack on the king side. Knight to b7. Here Berserk is desperately trying to get the knight somehow into the game. Stockfish continues now with the aggressive g4. This is the way to go. Queen to a5. We have now queen to c2, protecting now the pawn on a2, knight to d7, and now king to g2. Clearing the h file, going for the h4, h5 attack, trying now finally to put more pressure against black's king. Queen to d8. Now we have knight to g3, and look at this formation. We're now in move 32, and I think nothing spectacular happened, but when I watched now this game, and when I analyzed the home, and when I saw this move knight to g3 that it happens, it's already announced that there is something spectacular could happen. Look at this beautiful formation. Now finally the pieces are breeding, the pieces are dancing all over the board. The only piece that I think needs improvement is the queen. The queen has to be somehow included. This knight will be easily included into the attack with move knight to f3, but the queen has to, of course, somehow improve itself, and then Stockfish would have the perfect attacking formation. We have bishop to f6. Now comes this idea, queen to b6, and now finally g5, an attack against the bishop. Now, of course, h4, pushing the pawn simply here on this side of the board. f6, h5, great move by the fish. Knight to f8, knight to h4. Look at this, the pieces are now playing in perfect harmony. Stockfish is getting closer and closer to black's king. Queen to d8, h takes g6, h takes g6, and now comes the hammer of this particular game. Stockfish plays now the ultra aggressive bishop to h5. This is the way to go. Really beautiful and spectacular tactic, which is not allowing here black to breathe. You see now the idea about this move. G takes h5, and now there is a weak square in black's position, the weak f5 square. Previously, we saw that in one moment, Berserk managed to occupy the f4 square, but it was of course not a long-term fixed situation for the knight. You saw that Stockfish managed to kick away this knight from this active square on f4. Now when the knight came on f5, even if you traded off bishop to f5, knight to f5, then this other knight is coming into the game, and Stockfish is really crazy here. Stockfish calculations are really great because Stockfish is saying here that this knight is out of game through the whole game now. It's almost like black is playing without these two pieces on this side of the board, so it makes really this bishop to h5 move really understandable. After g takes h5, Stockfish hops. Here Berserk is trying still to keep the light square bishop on the board, plays now f takes g5, and it seems so that this pawn is protected, but now Stockfish continues with rook to h5, bishop to f5, now finally knight to f5, and now there are many things that you can play. You can try maybe knight to h7, but then queen to e2 gets into the game. Again, Stockfish will build here a powerful attack on the h file, or even if you try, I don't know, something like g4, it's also not working because of queen to d1, and the pawn will be lost. Again, I would say game over here for black. So that's why for knight to f5, Berserk played now bishop to f6, which really wasn't so good. The bishop now gets a little bit misplaced. Stockfish uses now this moment and plays now an aggressive knight to h6. The best defensive move here for Berserk was probably to play knight to h7, but as I said, then queen to d1, queen to h1, and still black would have a tough time to defend the position. But okay, bishop to f6, not a good move, because now finally knight to h6, king to g7. Stockfish actually repeats now the moves because it thinks that simply the move knight to h6 and knight to f5 are the best moves. But now after king to g7, Stockfish has to now play another move because it would be then a 3-time repetition. Stockfish plays now queen to d1. We have now queen to e8, and now finally this battery on the h file. Look at this. Stockfish built now really crazy attacking formation. Again, I'm pointing you out, this knight on b7 is out of game, but also the rook on b8 is so far not participating in the game at all. Knight to d8, Berserk is desperately trying now to get the knight into the game, but now knight to f5, king to g8, again we have a repetition, and after knight to f5, now finally rook to h6, attacking simply the dark square bishop, bishop to g7, and now knight takes g7, king takes g7, bishop to g5. The position is slowly but surely collapsing here for black, because even if you try, I don't know, something like knight to f7 to get finally the knight into the defense, and it seems like a logical idea because you're attacking two pieces, still this is not working because of bishop to f6. We have this one, rook to h1, here knight to h8, and after queen to h8, it's of course beautiful checkmate sequence, king to f7, and then queen to g7, the e6 square is taken. Again, a beautiful checkmate it would have been for sure. So after bishop to g5, that's why knight to g6 here by Berserk. Stockfish continues now with the brilliant idea, king to g3, improves a little bit the position of the king. The king cannot be endangered at all now by any black's pieces. Knight to f7, finally this idea here by Berserk, but Stockfish had everything under control. King to rook to h7 attacks now the king. King drops back, and now bishop to f6. And with this move, Stockfish is preparing also some rook to g7 stuff. Queen to h5 is a possibility. So many attacking chances are possible. Black pieces are misplaced. The bishop on f6 is really the best piece on the board. Here, queen to f8 again by Berserk. Desperate try to now get the new defender into the game, but now Stockfish continues, of course, with the obvious queen to h5, and there's nothing that can be done. If you try now knight from g to h8, then you get checkmated immediately. Then look at this, rook to f7 is working here. If you try knight to f7, then you get checkmated like this. You can just cover, of course, by with the queen, and it's game over. Or even if you try queen to f7 here, then queen takes h8. Is again a spectacular checkmate pattern here by white. So that's why for queen to h5, here you don't have time to play moves like, of course, rook to b7, then again queen to g6. So this knight is hanging here on the g file. So that's why after queen to h5, knight from f to h8, but Stockfish proceeds, of course, with bishop to h8. We have knight to f4 here by Berserk, and trying against to attack the queen. Even if you try queen to f4, seems tempting because you get finally the queen into the game, but you don't have so much. Even if you try to play queen to e4 and protect now your knight, then this one is coming. Then we can pick up here the piece. You can just prolong the game, but now we can go forward, and now in one moment you can cover with the queen, and nothing can be done anymore here for black. White gets out of this attack. Black will probably get a couple of checks, but obviously this is completely winning here for white. So that's why for bishop to h8, we have now knight to f4, an attack against the queen. Stockfish drops back. We have now knight to e2, a new check, and Stockfish goes even further. Queen to f4, queen takes f4, knight to f4, and now rook to h6. We get now all of this out of this tactical mess that Stockfish caused. We have reached now this endgame in which Stockfish is, I would say, only up a pawn. But the issue, look how crazy these calculations are by Stockfish. Stockfish managed to calculate everything just to reach this position where the pieces are lined up, the pawns here are lined up on the 6th rank, and now Stockfish can take many pieces. The king is more progressive here. It can be, of course, maybe included into the attack. So now in this endgame, white's activity of the pieces is again much better. Rook to b2, obviously here Berserk is attacking now the pawns on the 2nd rank, but it's simply too slow. Bishop to f6 by the fish, rook to f2, and now bishop to g5. Even if you deliver some checks, then the king is coming closer. This pawn is weak, so a potential check by black would actually help out white to activate the pieces further. So this is not working. So that's why from bishop to g5, you could maybe try, I don't know, rook takes a2. But again, white's position is much better. We'll pick up this one. You can go maybe for the pawns now on the 4th rank, but now we pick up simply the pawn d6, rook to c4, and now we pick up this one. When we have reached this position with 2 connected pass pawns, again, it's a completely winning endgame here for white. After bishop to g5, knight to d3, now Stockfish grabs this pawn. Berserk is again desperately trying to get the king closer to the action, but now Stockfish is grabbing more pawns. Knight to b4, Stockfish goes behind with the rook, and now goes with an easy bishop to e3. We have a new check, king to f3, nothing dangerous can happen here. Rook to h2, king to g3, rook to e2, and now bishop to c5. This position is really collapsing now for black. Look at this, rook to f3. Stockfish goes behind with the bishop and is now making further progress with the move c5. We have now then d6, c6. So again, 2 connected pass pawns are simply winning the game here for white. Rook to e2, Stockfish makes his progress. c6, rook to c2, bishop to e1, an attack against the knight. Knight to a6, rook to c3. Here Stockfish forces a trade of rooks, but Berserk is keeping the rooks on the board. Stockfish pushes the pawn further, promotes now to queen, and now the position is really over. Stockfish had now beautiful activity, promoted even new queen here after a couple more moves, and queen to h8, and here rook bishop to d2. It was here game over here for black. So amazing attack again by Stockfish 17. Really beautiful bishop sacrifice on h5 just in order to let the position explode in front of black's king. That's the beauty about Stockfish games. Stockfish notices always the lack of activity by its opponent's pieces, and then when the time is right, when it calculates that the pieces cannot get into defense, then it can even sacrifice something. So amazing stuff again by Stockfish, the deserved winner of the TCEC Season 27 Premier Division. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Ruy Lopez theory. If you want to see some other beautiful games played by Stockfish and also by some other top AIs, check out our commented chess games played by computers. Here's the link of our playlist. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos. And what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.